We all know the saying about assumptions. And if you don't, well, just Google it. With the massive surge of unemployment that happened this year, it's natural to assume that a massive surge of foreclosures will follow. Well, that's what we're talking about today, whether or not we're going to have a massive foreclosure experience, and we're starting right now. Hi y'all, I'm Debbie Dobbins, real estate entrepreneur here in Wichita Falls, Texas. And on this channel, we talk about all things Wichita Falls, from lifestyle to real estate and everything in between. So if you'd like to stay up to the minute on all things Wichita Falls, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to ring the bell. That way you'll be updated every Monday when we upload a new video, and sometimes we upload in between. So I get asked a lot, are we headed for a foreclosure crisis? And then the next question I get is, what's your forecast for the economy for 2021? Well, a lot of times you look at history to see what you think might be happening. And everybody, because of this economic meltdown that we've had this last year, is looking back to the short history of 2008. And that history is really not expected to repeat itself this time. And I'm going to share with you 3 simple statistics that prove why we're not, I said not, headed for another foreclosure crisis. And actually, the economic forecast is good. So many people want to compare what is happening today with what happened in 2008. And they are simply not even remotely the same. I'm going to say that again. They are not the same. The unique conditions that led to the 2008 market collapse, and I was part of it, and then the subsequent foreclosure crisis were in a huge part because people had cashed out their equity in their properties because their property values had gone up so high, and they all said, let's just cash that stuff out and have a party. And then their loans were upside down because they were doomed from the start by having loans that were bad loans. We don't want to get into that, but they were putting money and deferred interest back onto their principal. So they were just swimming upside down from right to left. And with all of those borrowers back in 2008 owing more than they could afford on their homes, these mass foreclosures began to happen. They couldn't make their payments. They couldn't justify keeping those homes because they were upside down and underwater. So let me explain a little bit about today's market. It looks completely different. Homeowners have an abundance of equity in their homes these days. And lending standards are not crazy, like they're not making those nutty loans that anybody that had a pulse could get a loan. And this means that instead of foreclosing and walking away, many homeowners are in a great position to protect their investment. So here's a graph that you can see that those people that have requested forbearance, because that's where this conversation has come from, is that a lot of people took forbearance at the beginning of this crisis with COVID, which means that their mortgage payments were stalled and then they'll go on their back end. But the people that requested forbearance, nearly 44% have either paid off their mortgage or opted out. How did they pay off their mortgage? Well, guess what? Refinances have gone off the chart. So when you refinance at a lower interest rate, you pay off your mortgage. Or they opted out of their forbearance, which just means that they got back on track, because a lot of people went back to work. But this graph also shows that all of the homeowners in forbearance, only 90,000 are at risk of moving into foreclosure, which is a minuscule amount compared to the millions that we had in 2008. So to drive this point home, so basically all the people that went into forbearance have worked something out. They're not sitting there waiting to be foreclosed on. All of these borrowers have been able to resume or continue their pre-pandemic monthly payments. Yay! So what that means is that we're not looking at a foreclosure crisis, we're looking at a recovery. Because in 2008, We saw the worst foreclosure crisis in the history of the country. The market was flooded with homes that had defaulted on their mortgage payments, spiking all the way up to over 500,000. 500,000 foreclosures in the peak of 2009. Today, we're looking at a much different story. Remember what I said? 90,000 people in forbearance might or might not come out of it compared to 500,000. According to Black Knight, 91% of homeowners in forbearance have 11% equity in their homes. This is really key because that may not seem like a big number. That much equity means really not that much, right? Oh, yes, it does. Because remember what I said, the people in 2008 were underwater. Their mortgages were way higher than what the value of their house was. So it was really easy to just take the keys and put it on the bank's desk. But nowadays, because of these forbearances and having 11% equity in your property, the homeowners could literally, if they needed to, sell their property and walk away, which is what happened last time. They walked away, but then they were foreclosed upon because they couldn't sell their house and get their money back and pay the bank off. So people can walk away now if they feel like they need to downsize with the gains that they'll get from the sale of their home. Although we're in a crisis now because there's no inventory, people are not selling their homes because they've realized they want to hang on to them. So what does that mean? It means that people have recovered since the Great Recession in 2008. Their homes now have equity in them. We're not upside down. And why would you want to lose your house if you actually have equity in it and take a foreclosure hit on your credit if you could sell your house? You don't even have to do a short sale because the money is there. So the big question is, what happens when forbearance inevitably expires, which is right around the corner here? Many lenders have already stepped up to help homeowners create a plan for deferred payments. So they're working it out if you are in trouble. There are multiple options that homeowners can pursue at this point. And with the right planning and communication with your lender, these people, these new homeowners with this percentage of equity may be able to avoid foreclosure, and more than likely they will, especially if they have this equity in their homes. Key ingredient. So the bottom line is, the reality of the situation is this. Through all of the hardship Americans have faced this year, people are going to fall into foreclosure. It's a simple fact of life. However, the last thing anyone wants right now is another foreclosure crisis like 2008. And there are many factors that suggest, it's not going to be like that at all. As a matter of fact, it is, well, I can't say anything's a sure thing because the world has changed and morphed in so many ways, but it is, in my opinion, 99.9999% sure that nothing like that is going to happen. And by knowing this information and these insights from market experts, not just me, you can make smart and calculated real estate decisions instead of those based on scary headlines, those crazy scary headlines that want to scare everybody, or hearsay. So if somebody tells you that we're headed for a foreclosure crisis, you tell them, no way, Jose. Anyone can drive a car really fast in a straight line. It's those that can navigate the twists and turns that cross the finish line first. So if you want to know more about navigating this changing market, click below and I will send you tips on navigating this changing market so you can navigate these waters better than anybody you know. So that concludes another episode of Your Wichita Falls, and y'all come back now, you hear?